All of us as God's people are committed to rescuing the weakest and most vulnerable in the hardest places. At least we need to be. That's what we're committed to. That brings us to India. That place is so complex and difficult, and we need gifted people to help us lead the way, to break through there, and to see where we can make a life-saving difference. We want to introduce you to our newest member at Passion Life, who's going to lead our way in Asia with the gospel of life. Join us today.
As always, it's exciting to welcome you into the Passion Life podcast. We're happy to have you. We're always happy to have you as viewers. It's good to spend time with my friend John Ensor here once a week on this and get some conversation going. John, glad to have you here today.
Good to see you and good to be with our friends and partners in this great work.
Yep. If you've been following this really exciting work, and I say that in all humility, it's exciting for me to be a part of what Passion Life is watching God do. We as staff members are not doing it. We're the ones who get to see it the closest up and then report it back to you, what God is doing through our partnership together. But if you've been following us for any length of time, what you realize is Passion Life is motivated and animated by one core question, and that is, where can we invest ourselves in the kingdom work, especially in as regards rescuing the innocent? Where can we invest ourselves where it will make the most difference and have the most impact for the glory of God? Where are we most needed? Right. And how can we put resources and efforts into those very places to see God most lifted up in the world? That desire to see God break through in the darkest strongholds of the world has really helped us focus our efforts in the last couple of years more and more into Asia. Now, there are three main hot zones in the world, as you know from our maps in the past. Asia is a big hot zone because of high populations for abortion. Hot zone for abortion. High populations cause a lot of abortions there. Central Europe, Eastern Europe, where post-Soviet communist bloc countries have high abortion rates. And then, of course, especially in the Caribbean islands of Latin America, Latin America is also a high concentration area for abortion. But what we have realized is that India now has taken over the dubious distinction of being the world's #1 country in terms of abortion rate. Isn't that right, John?
That's correct. That's among countries with at least 10 million people.
Right.
You know, and so we can talk about where are the most abortions happening, or we can talk about the abortion per capita given that population. So even in places like Greenland that has like 60,000 people in it, very, very high abortion rate. So worldview, religion has something to do with this.
That's right.
Secularism, materialism. But right now, India has taken over the #1 spot in terms of where we need to be going and trying to penetrate with the gospel of life.
And for that reason, we have decided to double and then redouble our efforts as we focus on all of Asia and in particular India in coming years and months with Passion Life. And so it gives me great pleasure and great joy to introduce to you today the tip of our spear, the new tip of our spear at Passion Life as we tackle Asia. And that leads us to introducing you here to Stan Pawlowski. Stan, welcome to the Passion Life podcast, and welcome to the Passion Life staff as the newest member of our stateside staff team.
Well, thank you. I'm honored and blessed to be a part of Passion Life and really excited to see what the Lord's going to do.
Amen. We are too. Stan is taking over and agreed to accept the role as our Director of Asian Initiatives for Passion Life at this point. So that brings large countries like China and India and Vietnam and a lot of these Asian countries under his purview. One of the things that Stan is going to be doing is kind of bringing some strategy to that region of the world in a new kind of meticulous, granular way. He's going to take some of our local national leaders in those countries and begin to really focus on building relationships and discipling them and working with them as they disciple other leaders coming in behind them. So, wow, it's a big job, Stan, and we're glad that we have you here to do it.
Well, thank you. I mean, again, it's a job way beyond anything I could do, and with the support of Passion Life and obviously the power of the Holy Spirit working through it, we know that great things can be accomplished in spite of us.
Well, we're trusting God for just exactly that. I think it's kind of fascinating, Stan, some of the background that you bring to this particular role. Can you tell us some about your missions experience just over the last 15, 20, 30 years of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the Lord works in mysterious ways for sure. So I got my heart for Asia kind of was opened up in two ways. One, it was actually starting to train in the Chinese martial arts, which I've
Okay.
done for about 30 years now. And it was something, yeah, exactly. We don't make the funny sounds though.
Oh, you don't?
No, no, haha, no.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but through that, I learned about the culture and the history of China among other Asian countries. And that kind of, God used that to kind of plant a little bit of a love for that part of the world in me. And then as a believer, one of the most important books I read was Hudson Taylor's Spiritual Secret. And in that
Ah.
book, he really challenges you as a believer to say, are you willing to trust the Lord? Are you willing to follow him even when it's hard? And um, and that really impacted me in a powerful way. And I was actually on the way
Hmm.
to actually pursue an art career at that time. But providentially, the Lord brought a young lady from South Carolina into my life who said, "We love the Lord, you love his word, why not pursue theological studies?" So
Mm.
that
Mm.
changed it. And the Lord was gracious enough to allow me to do my undergrad and both graduate theological studies at Columbia International University in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yep.
And through that
Oh.
process, you know, one of the kind of like the phrases that they use is to know him and make him known. And I kept going
Mm.
to Mark 16:15 to go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. And I started to ask myself, well, why not me? I'm reading about all these people doing this and going, but maybe the Lord is calling me to go. And so
Mm.
it's pretty amazing how God works it out. My wife and I, after 6 weeks of marriage, Jennifer, we went to Asia for a summer, and it was a very challenging situation. A lot of the stories you hear about um,
Mm.
persecution and other things like that, we've experienced a lot of that during that time. But after coming
Mm.
back and having physical problems, everything above, I remember looking at her and she's looking at me and saying that the Father is calling us to serve in East Asia. And
Wow.
so it's amazing how God brings you together and your experiences. And so that's really started that whole process. And so we were blessed to be commissioned in 2001. And we actually went to the field in the end of 2004. And so we
Mm.
served in East Asia from 2000, end of 2004. She really came home about 2017. We came back from the
Okay.
field. But during that time, the Lord was really gracious because he not only allowed us to, one of our primary ministries was to work with orphans and rescue orphans.
Mm.
But through that process, we also worked with the church, teaching and training the church on biblical orphan care and adoption. We also, though, God gave me the opportunity to start a business as missions platform as a way to continue to grow and to raise funds to rescue orphans and to support the church. So
Wow.
through
Wow.
so through that time, God really opened up a tremendous amount of opportunities for us to be there.
So I got a couple of follow-up questions on that. Now, specifically, what kind of martial arts did you get into? Because there's different kinds, I guess, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds, but so I'm actually a master teacher of Chinese Kung Fu. Um, there's
Chinese Kung Fu.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
there's different systems of kung fu, but
Remember that when the going gets tough, John, and if you and Stan ever butt heads, just remember his training.
mm.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
one of the funny things about it, though, guys, is that the fact that I have the ranking of being the term is Shifu,
Yep.
um, that opened up a lot of opportunities in Asia for me. Also, there was a sense of
Yeah,
accomplishment
sure.
and respect that people allowed me to get into places and do things that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do. So we're really,
Yeah.
again, you never know how the Lord's going to work those type of things.
That's
Well,
fascinating.
that's just it's just an interesting. I won't say it's unique, but it sounds almost unique that this was the initial itch and interest that led eventually to you going to Asia. So that's really interesting. The other thing is, it sounds to me like in your initial almost investigative trip over there,
Hmm.
you face some immediate hardships
Hmm.
that would scare away a lot of people and a lot of, you know, your wife obviously rose to the challenge and interpreted those hardships in a way that almost reinforced her resolve rather than scared her away. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Lord used that to really help us discern, is this really something that we're really being called to, or is it something that we're interested in? There's a difference between saying, I'm willing to go or I'm interested in going, but then experiencing the hardship and actually doing it. And so,
Yeah.
one thing I want to add to that too, with the martial arts background, is that after we went and the Lord clearly showed us this is the direction, I actually ran a Kung Fu school for a while. And I used it as a ministry and outreach to take the moral teachings of Kung Fu, and that was a beautiful stepping stone to the gospel truth. And we saw the Lord use
Mm.
that. But one of the things I remember is talking to a spiritual mentor of mine, and they said, when we were talking about us going to the mission field, they said, if you're not doing it here, then you're not going to do it there. So examine yourself and say, are you willing to serve sacrificially here so that you'll be ready to go there? And so, again, being able
Yeah.
to, for 9 years, running that martial art ministry and being involved in the
Yeah.
church and stuff is what prepared us to actually say, okay, we can go.
I actually also read the book that you mentioned by Hudson Taylor, his Spiritual Secrets. And I remember also there that he adopted a very strict diet and other things back in London as under the same theory that he needs to learn to do in his home area what he expects to have to face and endure overseas. Um, so, but I'm really fascinated by the fact that all the hard things were thrown at you right at the beginning, which for many wives, let's face it, that would have been the moment where you want to check out. But
Hmm.
I think there's a theological lesson there, which is definitely, to follow the calling and to recognize that in many ways it's true that there's no safer place to be than the will of God, wherever that happens to be. So,
Yeah, and it's better to have the fear of the Lord than fear of man, right? And if
yeah,
we have
amen.
fear, if we have fear of the Lord and who He is, I'm not talking about reverence, and those are wonderful things, but truly have a fear of the Lord, that compels
Mm,
us to not fear man, and that compels us to go and do things that are way beyond what we could do, or maybe we're fearful of doing, because we have our fear and we have our heart in the right place.
Mm, mm. Well, Stan, uh, I was looking just the other day. I happened to come into Lamentations, and my soul pricked up as I was reading from Lamentations 3. One of the verses says this: The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. And I can tell you with all honesty, to fill the position of Passion Life's Director of Asian Initiatives is really kind of a niche
mm-hmm.
thing. And it's something that John and I have been talking about and praying about, really not just for the last few months. Over the last couple of years, we've seen this coming.
Yep.
And we knew it was going to be big shoes and hard shoes to fill. But as we've heard from your testimony, you have a passion for Asia, drawn out by the Lord who sent you on a mission trip, and you have missions experience, you have theological training to be able to train pastors and teach pastors and do the kinds of things that we've asked you to do. You've run a BAM initiative, so you have some business experience in Asia. You have leadership and organizational skills that you bring to this particular ministry. And then you also have, from the time that you were in Asia, you were doing orphan care, which is directly tangential to what we're doing here in trying to prevent abortion. There are orphans that are orphans because moms gave them up for adoption because they weren't ready to be moms. And it's just fits hand in glove with pro-life ministry to begin with. So you were a tall order, my friend, and we feel happy that the Lord has done exactly, he's given a good thing to us who have been waiting on him and who've been seeking him for someone to fill the role that you're now filling.
Well, I also understand completely that I'm insufficient. Those experiences and the things that the Lord has given me over the years, they're valuable, but I'm insufficient. So it's reliance on Him and the Holy Spirit that will allow me to hopefully serve Him in a way that brings great glory to Him and be a positive addition to Passion Life, which I am so excited about what the Lord is doing through Passion Life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People ask me all the time about what we're trying to do around the world through Passion Life, and it's pro-life work, but it's outside the border. It's international in scope, and it really requires us to have one foot planted in the whole world of world missions and world missions history and strategy and understanding culture and entry points into what is often a hostile culture, definitely a different culture, and one foot planted in what we typically refer to as the pro-life arena, where it's understanding the sanctity of human life, understanding the violence of abortion and youth and gendercide and infanticide, which is part of this child killing formula that we see throughout much of Asia and the former USSR areas of the world, and understanding some of the pro-life ethics that arrive out of the Bible, that we need to be rescuing the innocent as well as bringing good news to the guilty. So in many ways, we're trying to create a new culture in which missions people recognize that pro-life work is an entry point for the gospel, and pro-life passionate people begin to think outside the United States and address the pro-life moral crisis of abortion as a world missions enterprise. And so if you bring pro-life people and world missions people together and they get married and have children, it's you and me and all, it's the movement of Passion Life right there. Okay. That's the combination that we're after. So it's exciting that I want to hear a little bit about some of your recent pro-life experiences, particularly in the pregnancy center. I know Tom's going to run away with this, but just give us a quick thing about what you've been doing on that side of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. Just briefly, I had some introduction to that while we were in East Asia, when I was connected and working with someone in the church there in East Asia who was focusing on sanctity of life. So I had a little bit of an introduction at that point. So as a believer, I've always been pro-life, of course. But then, so when we came back to the States, we had to come back to the States because of certain things that were unrest and things like that. Well, I worked with Chinese in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech, scholars and students and stuff, with a heart of wanting to go back overseas. But as we pursued that, the Lord just did not open that door. And so instead, the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to work as communications manager at our local pregnancy resource center. And to be honest, I had never even imagined that I'd be working at a pregnancy resource center. But I can tell you right now, that was such a gift of grace from the Lord. The time I spent there opened up. So there's two things that came from that. One, the first thing it did was it opened up my eyes to the really kind of deep down, gritty part of that. What it's like when a young woman comes in, not knowing what to do, thinking, hey, if I have this baby, I can't go on living. If I abort this baby, I can't go on living, and real life situations, and also understanding about that, the industry, what's going on, and what the Lord's doing through it. So that taught me and brought me into such a deeper part of this. And the honest truth is, it really deepened my understanding and my heart and passion for the unborn. like really
Amen.
never before. I think, of
Amen.
course, I'm pro-life, but it really opened up my eyes. So God gave me that wonderful opportunity to actually see from a world missions perspective and then also from a PRC perspective.
And then there's this interesting story, which as soon as we come back from our break, I want to kind of jump into the interesting story specifically of how you got brought to Passion Life. I think people who are watching this will be pleased to hear it because it's just kind of a delightful story. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll jump into that.
The U.S. accounts for only 3% of the abortions that happen in our world each year, leaving 97% of the crisis before us as a world missions challenge. Would you join us in serving where the need is greatest? Passion Life, rescuing the most vulnerable where abortion is most concentrated.
We've received a really overwhelming and wonderful response to this tiny baby fetal model that we've developed here in Passion Life. This fetal model is a medically accurate representation from the 9th week after conception. If you go to our website, we've got a way for you to not only send those tiny babies around the world, but find out a way that you can have some of those tiny babies come to you for your own use as well. Well, I've been talking today with John Ensor, our president at Passion Life, and our newly hired director of Asian Initiatives, Stan Pawlowski. Stan, you came to us in a providential way. We were holding your job description and the person that we were looking for kind of close to our chest for a long time. We were not broadly distributing this, but your boss found something online that made you come to us, and you got that job description. Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. As I was working at the Pregnancy Resource Center, my boss, Larissa, brought me in, and she had come across information about Passion Life, and she saw that there was what she thought was a job opening for Passion Life. And she, understanding my gifts and my background, was just unselfish in saying, "Hey, why don't you check this out?" And so she was willing to let me go if I could find something that actually utilized the gifts that God had given me in a way I could serve in a better way, and which is really gracious. So that's what I did. I reached out to you, and then you basically told me about this opportunity. She thought there was a job open. It wasn't, but there was another position. So we just kind of see how God worked to bring me to Passion Life.
I love the providence of God in that. It's a great story.
And I like the generosity of spirit that it reflects, because so many nonprofit organizations, they're struggling to survive, and you're trying to get the support and the right people, and to give some of your people away. It's a beautiful thing. It's the difference between being organizationally driven and being movement driven. And we try to be movement driven ourselves and help whoever that we can, whether there's something that comes back to us or not. So I just really commend Larissa for what she did there, and we're praising God for it. So you're here, and I know that we're really sending you off to a hard place, particularly in India. I tell people I think that India is the most complicated, difficult, challenging place in the world to work. There are lots of reasons for that. I mean, they have like 28 official languages. China has one, Cuba has one, everybody else has one or two. But India has the highest rate of abortion in the world now. And here's a little chart that has all 15 of the top 15 countries by their rate. And India is number one. So I hope you're ready to go back and visit India and understand some of its cultural challenges. Get to know some of our leaders there, because we're all in on India now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have put together what we call our Curry and Spice initiative, specifically for India, as we've decided as an organization to double down on this new world number one for abortion. And so I want to talk directly to the people who are watching us right now. If you are excited about what's going on with Stan being hired into this Director of Asian Initiatives, I would suggest that you email me directly at the email that is at the bottom third of this screen. This is my personal email address. And if you want to hear more about what we call our Curry and Spice Initiative, which is a strategic capital campaign for beginning to fill out this vision and how we're going to fund it over the next 3 years, I will be able to send you some specific information on how you can get involved, how you can pray for Stan, how you can pray for Passion Life, and how you can be involved in Asia, where the abortion rates are the highest in the world. John?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It scares me. It trembles my knees, as they say, because I see all the difficulties. But I also know that these things drip with the glory of God. And if we can see a breakthrough in India, like we've seen in Cuba, for example, I think God will be much glorified and many, many babies will be saved. But it takes a lot of effort. We're going to raise around $250,000 a year to try to launch this effort every year. And so it's not an easy thing to do, but we're going to start with some of the funding. We're going to spend it on some of the team that we need to build. And India is so complex that you got to do some things in the north differently than you're going to do it in the southern part of India. And there's a lot of travel back and forth that you, Stan, are going to be going on. Mark, do you know when you're going to be going back over to India with Stan?
I don't know when I'm going to be going with Stan, but I will be going to India a week from today with 2 other Passion Life staff members. A team of 3 of us will be going to India. So pray for that if you're watching this today.
Okay.
I know that you and Stan are going to be heading to Asia just within the next 6 weeks or so. You're going to be back over to Asia together, the 2 of you.
Yeah.
And at some point, I want to get Stan over and introduce him to some of our other partners in Vietnam and India and various places within Asia so that he can get a hold of who this team is that he's going to be working with.
Well, Stan, our calling is to go to the hardest places on earth for an innocent baby to survive and to bring the gospel of life to those places. And that has certainly taken us many, many, many times to Asia. And now particularly we've got our foot planted in India, but we don't really have 2 feet there yet. So just really want to thank you for coming and helping us establish the gospel of life in India. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Just basically, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a part of Passion Life, and I just want to see the Lord glorified among the nations and the lives of the unborn saved. And I know that He goes before us, so I have confidence in Him, and I have confidence in the people that He's put together in Passion Life. And I also have confidence in the church to come behind us and support us.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. The Curry and Spice Initiative. You want to be a part of something that's pretty challenging and difficult? Contact Mark and ask for the Curry and Spice Initiative. Pray for Stan as we send him off to India. And thank you for joining with us today. God bless you.
God bless.
God bless.